Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I've got some fun Christmas crafts coming your way. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Let's head on into project number 1. For this project, I'll be using these product here. This is from Dollar Tree, a round circle sign. Now, if you wanted to stay with circle, you could use these thicker circles from Dollar Tree, or you could use like these kind of coasters that come from the garden section at Dollar Tree. They're a little bit smaller, or you could use even a whole different shape if you want, but I chose this because the size worked great in correlation with the large tag. I got these from Hobby Lobby. They come in a package of 20 in the unfinished wood section, and they're called doll pin stands. And then I have these wonky wood hearts. They come craftingwithkimber.com. I'll have the link in the description box down below. This is an easel from Dollar Tree, so something that's kind of an easel, and this is a wood tag that comes from Walmart. I've already got paper cut for it, and as you can see, I cut it so it's about 1/8 of an inch smaller all the way around, so you see the wood border of that tag. And then of course I'll cut this circle out later. Now for this, I picked this dot paper from my supply. I was going to do it the same color both sides, and then of course decided to switch a red and green, and why I didn't think of that first, I don't know. And as you can see, you can do it by just a pencil and go in about 1/8 of an inch, or use this handy dandy compass tool to create your circle a lot quicker and faster, and then cut that out. So I have a small circle for the front. You can see the wood border around it, and then a little bit larger circle for the back, but still the wood border around it, and then some cute Christmas music paper. And I'm going to come in and redraw the pattern perimeter on this as well, and cut it out to fit the front of the heart, but still allows a little bit of the border of the heart to show around that paper. Now I'm taking all my papers to the sewing machine. This is a Vevor Brand sewing machine. If you missed my last video, I'll have the link down below for you showcasing Vevor product. I love this machine. I'm still getting used to it because it is so dang powerful. I can't quite get the rhythm with the foot pedal, but it works wonderful. And I'm actually, I usually use a size 10 or 11 needle on my machine. I'm actually using the size 14, I think, that came with the machine, because I wanted to see how it worked on the paper, and it's actually working fine, but it's very inexpensive. Check out my video link down below if you haven't seen it, and go check it out if you're in the market for a sewing machine. So I'm just sewing on my papers. Now my heart here, as you see, because the heart is so small, I actually placed it on a bigger sheet of paper so that I could manipulate and move the larger sheet of paper and sew the heart. And of course it'll be a double layer, but we're going to cut that paper away from the heart, so it's not going to make any difference there. And then of course you can see how I sew a circle. Going to switch gears using Little Black Dress, Debbie's Design Diary DIY chalk paint, Waverly wax mixed with water, and just kind of paint some of my things here. And once I get done painting everything, I will sand it off camera with my electric sander. I'm doing this piece and then that little doll pin stand in black, so it matches the larger black wood tag there. And in my heart, I just stained. I just didn't want like a black heart, at Christmas. So there you go. While those are, off to the side, I'm taking the open end of my scissor blades and I'm scraping along the edges of all my papers here. And as you can see, it adds a nice kind of white silhouette around it. This is by choice if you want to or not want to do it, and you can see what that looks like, but it just kind of helps elevate it up off of the wood a little bit. And here, as you can see how I cut off at the bigger paper, you just kind of get your scissors right up underneath that heart there, and then just cut off that excess paper around it, and you don't even see it, and it definitely helps to sew that tiny bit of a piece of paper. All right, here's my pieces all sanded. Just a real light sanding. I didn't go too heavy, you just barely notice it. And I'm going to just kind of start to place my pieces here, because I need to see where I'm going to add a thing to hang my sign here. I want to see with my paper in correlation with everything, and I'm going to use just a great big needle here to make a pinpoint hole. And then I'm going to use these little fluted dowel pins to hang. And it's okay if I sew through the back of my wood, because that little easel we're going to glue onto the back, and that's going to cover the hole. So I'm going to do a hole here that's just big enough to fit the dowel. And then off camera, I'm going to use about 2 sizes bigger drill bit here to and here it is, to make the hole so that it slides on and off the dowel, really easy to flip the sign. Now for the quotes on this project, I do have a free PDF printable down below in my description box for you. It takes you to my blog. For those of you that don't have an electronic cutting machine, you can either use carbon paper and, copy it that way and paint it in with like a paint pen, or, you can use the PDF and print it onto scrapbook paper first, and then cut your paper out to fit your projects. For those of you with electronic cutting machines, I'll have the fonts listed down in my description box for you. Now for this next part of my video, all I did was add vinyl to my paper pieces. I was having a problem with my lighting, so I tried to cut out as much as I can. You're going to see just a little bit here upcoming in just a second. Here we go, as I dip my brush into some paint mixed with water and add some splatters to all my paint pieces, but I was trying to cut out all that blinking. I don't know what happened. Adding glue to the back of my paper here and adding that to the big large tag, adding glue to that hole I drilled, and then I'm putting in my dowel. And then I'm adding my paper to the front and back of my circle, and then the Dear Santa to the top of my tag. Now we should be okay with the lighting, so I apologize for that. I'm just adding some Beacon Fabri-Tac glue here to add that little doll pin thing to the top of my tag to act like a fun decorative washer. And then I cut some cardstock to fit the back of the tag to finish it off, so gluing that on there. And then I'm going to glue the little heart over to the left here at the top, and I'm going to add some really thick twine that I get at Walmart. I'm just going to leave the twine simple and just gather both ends together and tie in a knot and just kind of trim off the excess the way I want it. And then I'm going to use my favorite clear shimmer spray with a hint of silver glitter in it. I'll have the link down to the Etsy shop in the description box for you below. And I'm going to spray my sign, and of course the removable sign. And then a little later I decided my sign just needs something else, my tag. So you're going to see it in the final look, but basically all I did was take some spray adhesive in a couple of spots and then sprinkle in some fake snow. All right, and then once this is done and dry, I'm going to use this Beacon Quick Grip glue, I can never say that, to that easel to glue it to the back of the tag so that our little wood tag sign stands up, and that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 2. For this project, I'm going to be using a bed spring, but I have designed it so if you don't have a bed spring, it will still work. I've got some beads here. You can use, make clay eyes. I'm going to use these for eyes on my project. You can make them out of clay, paint them on however you want. A couple of these duster mop pads from Dollar Tree, just some fabric of your choice, and I'm going to use some muslin fabric as well. There are like 2 colors of muslin fabric, but I always tend to go toward the darker because I also do like the texture of that fabric a little better. And something for weight, I'm going to use these rocks from Dollar Tree. You could use sand or anything like that. And then I have a free printable pattern for you. It's 3 pages, so you have, for a hat, you have A and B, and what you'll do is cut them out and tape them at the dotted lines there because it's a nice big long hat as you see here. And then you're going to cut 2 of the fabric on that. And then for the other one here, there's a head piece you cut 2, a nose piece you cut 1, and the hat brim you cut 1. My measurements on there are actually off, and you do place this on the fold to cut it of your fabric, but it's actually about 13.5 inches tall. So the first thing I'm going to do, that was an old pattern, I remade the pattern. The first thing I'm going to do is just pin my hat to whatever, printed fabric I want. Of course, I chose a red check. This came from Hobby Lobby. I'll cut that out. And then for the brim of the hat, I'm going to use this kind of fleecy fur I get from Walmart, or you could use like this batting fabric from Walmart. It's a little thinner. If you're going to use a batting fabric, I'd probably cut 2 pieces, but the fur I'd cut 1. And then I'm going to go move ahead here to my head and my nose. I'm going to cut 2 for my head, 1 for my nose. So let's start on the head. You need to leave a little about 2-inch opening at the top. And I like to kind of pin it so I don't, make sure I don't close that off. Now, if you are a gluer here, basically we're coming down around the sides and the bottom. So the gluers, your gluing option is this, basically Beacon Fabri-Tac glue, about a 1/2 inch in on all your pieces, glue around the side, the bottom, the other side, and then leaving that top portion open for stuffing. Sewers, this is your sewing option. Of course, it's the same exact thing I just explained, but you're just going to sew in that pattern. Again, if you're interested in this machine, I'll have links down below in my description box for you, plus the video where I showed it all. All right, so I'm going to take my pins out. It's all done. We're going to come into the gluing option first. What you're going to do is turn it inside out. Sewers, you're waiting. You're waiting on the sidelines. Not inside out. Turn it right side out. I always mess that up. I'm sorry. And make sure you get your little points out here like I'm doing. What we're going to do is make this stand up in case you don't have a bed spring. What you're going to do is at the points, you're just going to press it in. So you have a little divot. Make sure it's about 1 inch deep or so. So one side, and then you're going to turn around and do the same thing on the other side here. Just kind of press that point in so you have a nice little divot, and you're going to glue right in there with Fabri-Tac glue or a hot glue and squeeze it shut. All right, that's what it's going to look like here. Okay, that's just going to help make it stand up just like that. And again, we're doing this so if you don't have a bed spring, but even if you do have a bed spring, we're still going to continue with this option just to make it easy on everybody. All right, as you can see, I'm turning this back to wrong side out for those sewers, those of your sewers. And what you're going to do is come back to those same points I was showing the gluers, and we're going to just sew right across about 1 inch down. All right, I've showed this process many times, but I know I always have new people, but you're just going to that point, come down about 1 inch and sew straight across the fabric. I'll show you here what it looks like, just like that, both sides at that point. Now, gluers, I want you to turn your piece back to the wrong side out so that we are now all together. So we have these little points sticking here, and we need to kind of glue them down. So just use your hot glue or Fabri-Tac glue, take that point and glue it right down onto that bottom seam that you sewed or glued there, okay? That just gives it some stability. All right. This is what it should look like when you're done, and now we can all turn our pieces right side out, okay? And when we do, obviously, again, this is what it's going to look like here, just like this, a little rectangle bottom, and that gives us our stability so this can stand up. And I know, bear with me, that we have a rectangle bottom here that's going to fit on a round bed spring, but I'll show you how we're going to make that work, and that top of the bed spring will get all covered up anyway. Now let's go to work on our hat. The first thing I want to do is take my little furry brim piece, and I'm just going to glue one end down because I'm going to sew this down. So those of you that are sewers, if you want to sew this on, you can go ahead and glue one edge down so it looks nice, and then wait for me. We're going to go into the gluing option first. So my gluers on your hat, you want to glue about a 1/2 inch in from each edge. I'm going to leave this little short end open, but you could glue it down, and you'll just glue down the 2 long sides, the short edge if you want, but leave that long edge open. And then on your brim, you're actually going to glue both sides in, both raw edges. And then I've got this pin, so to pretend that like I glued it down, I'm going to turn it right side out. It's just to show you gluers. And what you're going to do is take one short edge of your brim and line it up with the edge of your hat and glue it, and then wrap it around your hat and glue it there. And you're going to have a little inch overhang, and so you just come back over where you started and glue that down. Now, sewers, this is your option here, okay? I'm going to pin my hat here because I'm going to sew down the 2 long sides. Again, I'm leaving that short edge open. You can glue it down if you want. Glue it down, sew it down if you want. My brain's on the gluing here. Go ahead and sew down both sides. And then we're going to work on our brim. Now, of course, if you want the way easy route, which after I got done sewing it, I'm like, I should have just glued it down. You could totally just glue it down how I showed the gluers, but I wanted to give you a sewing option for those of you that like to just sew it all the way through, to sew the brim onto the hat. Okay, once this is done, you can see my sewing's done here. I'm going to leave it wrong side out, and I'm going to take my brim. Remember, one side is glued down. I want that glued edge facing up toward the short end of the hat. Okay, and then I'm going to line this up with my hat down at the bottom, okay, the raw edges at the bottom. Now this is going to be too big, and I made the pattern too big in case those of you use, however, the seam allowance if it's not quite a 1/2 inch. So you're going to wrap it around and pin it to the hat, and I actually started, when I started pinning it, I pinned it about 1 inch off of one sewn edge. So you can see here I'm a little bit off the edge here, and then I've got that excess. And I'm just going to sew that down, making sure I don't sew onto the hat. Okay, I'll do that off camera. I'm going to sew that closed. Here it is all sewn. And then you can see here again, I didn't sew it to the hat. So I'm going to cut that off. And now I'm going to start pinning the raw edge of that brim to the raw edge of the hat. And then we'll go ahead and sew both those pieces together. And again, I made that brim extra long, and that's why we have to cut off the excess in case between, those that are gluers or sewers, you don't exactly do a 1/2 inch seam allowance, that kind of thing. I just rather you all have extra on your pattern piece and deal with it. All right, now once it's done, I'm going to turn my hat right side out, and then you can see the brim is now wrong side out. That's what we want. And then we're going to go ahead and flip that up, and now it all looks nice. Both pieces are right side out. Again, you can just choose the option of gluing it together if you want. Now let's work on the nose. Gluers, you got to do a little hand sewing here. So I just have needle and thread here, and what you can do is place your needle from the front of the piece to the back, and then come from the back to the front about 1/4 inch apart, or you can pleat it back and forth like this onto your fabric, about 3 or 4 pleats, and then pull it all the way through and continue that all the way around. I will have a link down below to my blog for this process if you just need to see it a little bit slower. So you're going to do this all the way around till you come to where you started on your nose here, and we're just using one piece of fabric. You can see I'm right close to that knot, that beginning knot. And then what I'm going to do is come here and I'm going to pull that knot out. So I have 2 long pieces of thread. And then we're going to add some stuffing into the center of that nose and take those 2 long pieces of thread and pull it together. Close that up as best possible. Got a little nose here, as you can see on one side. And then just I'm going to cut the needle off there, and then I'm going to just go ahead. It will pop back open, but once you start to tie your 2 pieces of thread together in a knot and cinch it back up, it'll close that nose. And I will tie probably 4 or 5 knots here. And then I'll just cut off the excess thread. And I know that back's open, but we're going to glue that on anyway, so you're not going to see any of that. All right? Now let's go to the face. What I want to do first is put the rocks in for some weight. So I like to put a little stuffing down first. Again, you can use rocks or sand, or some people like cat litter, unscented cat litter. But when I use rocks, I put batting or fluffing in first, and then put some more fluffing in around, so I can, camouflage the feeling so you don't feel the rocks in there. Basically, I'm just kind of patting around the rocks here. And then once I'm satisfied with that, I will stuff our little face all the rest of the way up. Now we're going to work on where we want the eyes and stuff. So I kind of put the hat on. We haven't done our beard yet, putting the nose in, but I want to see where I'm going to place my eyes. Basically is why I'm doing this. And then I'm going to take a little Sharpie marker, and I'm going to make 2 little dots here. Now if you are using beads or made little clay eyes, you can certainly glue them on, but I'm going to use a needle and thread here. All right, and I'm going to come in through the top of the opening of the hat and have my needle come out where I made that mark. You can see here. And then I'm just going to, put my bead onto that needle and thread there, and then put my thread back through right close to where I came out, but not through the same hole. And then pull my needle and thread into the inside and back up through the top of the hat, and bring my bead right close to that fabric. And I'm going to do that twice just so it's nice and secure, run that thread through that bead twice. And then I'm going to come through and do the second one the same way, come out where that mark is first made, thread my bead onto the needle, and then put my needle back through right next to the where I just came out, and then pull that needle up and out through the top, and then I'm going to come back in and run it through that needle again. Okay, and as you can see, I've got my eyes just kind of a little bit slanty because I wanted to do that. Once that's done, I'm going to cut my needle off, and I'm going to take both of those threads there, and I'm just going to tie a knot way down in close right to that fabric there. You kind of got to get down to where your needle and thread come out, and just tie a knot to knot that off. Now I'm going to take some crochet thread here. You can get it at Walmart, and either some doll needles or yarn darning needles, because they have bigger eye openings for that crochet thread to go through. And I want to make some little eyebrows. Okay, and I want to make them slanted. And I'm going to do the same thing like I did with the eyes. I'm going to come out from the inside of the hat down to the bottom and just make a little slanted eyebrow here. Come out through the fabric and then go back up to make my little slanted eyebrow, just like that. And then go back into the fabric again for the other side. However long or short I want my eyebrows slanted there, figure out where I want it, and then go back into the fabric and back up to the top. It's just that easy. It's done. And then I'm just going to kind of find one of my stitches there, as you can see here, and then run my needle through it and make a little knot to close that off and then cut off the excess. Okay, and again, you can use Sharpie marker and just draw these on if you want. And I'm taking just a little bit of light stuffing and stuffing my hat. I just want it really loose. I don't want it really stuffed full. Okay, back to our hat. Set that aside. Now we're going to work on our beard. Cut off your tags and stuff off of these. I only needed 1.5 of these little things, and I'm going to start with some Distress Oxide ink and Vintage Photo, and I'm going to just rub that ink on just to dirty up my beard a little bit. Not too much, because Santa doesn't have a muddy, dirty beard, but just to give it a little bit of color so it's not stark white. You could leave it stark white if you want. I'm going to go around the top and around the edges and even onto the backside in case a little bit of that gets seen. And I will do both of these. I'm just going to show one here on camera. All right, and then I'm going to cut both of those. I'm going to fold it in half lengthwise and then just cut my beard in half. Again, I only need 1.5 of these for the beard. All right, and then you can kind of see on the front, you can kind of see in between, because it's in like 3 rows, and you can kind of see in between those if you spread those fibers apart where that row is. And then I'm just going to trim off any excess fabric on the back right close to where they have it sewn on there. And then if there's any pieces coming out, I just trim that off. And yes, this does shed quite a bit, but after a while it stops shedding, but you're going to have a little bit of a mess there. But see, I kind of trim both sides, and I'll show you up close here in a little bit, trim both sides of excess fabric off. And when I was trying to kind of take my hand and rub down any excess fallout, a big chunk came off, and you can just see I glued that back on. Okay, and I'm going to make a bunch of strips here and there. See how they have like a double sewing? I just cleaned off the excess fabric on both sides of that. But I left that little strip you got to, or, nothing's going to hold that on. And now I've laid my pieces. I've got 6 pieces on the bottom. And then I'm going to start my top row, and I slanted those to make so it goes around the nose. Probably better to watch than I'm talking. And then my bottom layer is longer pieces, and I kind of brought it up in a U shape, so the longer pieces on the front, and then it gets a little bit longer so it comes in the U shape, and then my 2 middle pieces are shaped diagonally to come around the nose, and then I'm going to do 4 more little short pieces coming around and layer it on top like that. And I'm going to take my nose out and my headpiece out and leave this like this so I know how I had it. Now I'm going to take that Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink and a little worn lipstick ink in pink. And the Vintage Photo ink, I just want to go around the front and back of our face here and kind of dirty it up a little bit with my bigger ink pad here. And then I'll come in with a smaller little inking and come in and just really shadow it around the eyes and the eyebrows there, just so that it really silhouettes and focuses on that area. And then I'm going to come in and ink my nose up a little bit in the brown ink. And I'm going to do just a little bit of inking on the brim of that hat. But again, not too much, because I just want it to have like it's a little bit worn but not stark white. I'm going to come in with the pink and make some cheeks. And then I'm going to add a little pink to the nose. And you can see it's a little bit bright here. But then we'll just come back in with that brown ink and go right back over the pink to just kind of tone that pink down a little bit on both the cheeks and the nose. Right, then we're done with that. Now we're going to start assembling our beard here. I want to see where my nose is going to be so I know where to place my first 2 pieces of beard. And I'm just going to do a little spot gluing right at the very tip top there to get my pieces into position. Okay? And I'll do that on all of them, just kind of about 1 inch onto those pieces of beard to get them glued down, and then I can come back in later and fully glue the rest of it. Okay, coming around the sides, and I'll show you here in a minute. The 2 side pieces kind of comes and overlaps around. See, it's over the seam of the side of the face there. Okay, now I'm coming back in underneath all the pieces and make sure it's fully glued down onto the fabric there. Okay. And And then I'm going to go ahead and glue the nose in. Get that in there. It's so cute with that big puffy nose. Make sure my puffy fabric is around that nose. I'm going to bring my 2 center pieces up underneath that nose. Again, remember these are cut diagonally, so it just kind of frames around underneath that nose there. And then I'll bring in the rest of my pieces here and get those glued on. So we have a little double layer beard out of those little dusting things from Dollar Tree. Again, it's going to shed a lot, but after a while, once you keep getting the shed off, it stops shedding. So sorry for all the shed you're going to have, but it makes a really cute beard. It really starts to come together when you put the beard on. Now I'm using clickable stamps from Michaels, and I just stamped the word Jolly onto a ripped piece of muslin and a ripped piece in a square shape. And I'm just going to add some felt here on the back for some padding. And then I'm going to glue that right onto kind of the front of the hat here. This is optional, and I decided I want to take a thin piece of twine here and a needle and just make some stitches around it because we haven't put our hat on yet, so I can come in, you know, the inside of the hat and make some cute little stitches here. Again, you don't have to do that at all. You can just, you know, glue it on and leave it, but I thought I'd make 2 little stitches on each side of the square of the fabric muslin here, just to give it a little something to make it look, you know, a little bit farmhousey and fun, and like he's just got an old patch on his hat, you know. And you don't have to put anything here if you don't want, but I just thought I would add a little something more. Finish up my last 2 stitches on the last side of my hat here. It was really easy to do, and you could just make some little dash lines around the fabric with like a Sharpie marker. Would look certainly just as cute. You don't have to sew anything at all. I'm going to finish that off by just kind of sewing in a little knot here underneath one of the first stitches, and I'll cut off the excess. Right, and then I'm going to just glue the opening of our head there, get them all closed up. We don't want his little stuffing to come out. Not that it would anyway, because we're going to put the hat on. I'm going to get it into the position I want, and bringing the hat down as far back as I can onto the back, because a little bit of the back's going to show there, but that's okay. And then I'm going to just go ahead and glue that down into position. The beard kind of comes down and covers a little bit on the back, but you know, you don't want the beard to go all the way around it. I think that would look silly. And glue the front on so that the eyebrows show a little bit, and make sure I've got it glued down on the sides so it's glued onto those beard pieces. It looks really, really cute. I love how this turned out. And now, see how my hat just kind of looks crinkled and wrinkled there? I want it to stay that way. So I'm going to just use my Fabri-Tac glue and glue those crinkles into position so, like I said, they stay that way. That way when you get it on your bed spring or you sit it up upright, it's already got the cute little crinkles as it's coming around Santa's head. Once that's set up, I've got 2 different twines here, one from Walmart and the little red and cream from Dollar Tree, some bells and beaded berries and greenery just from my supply, just whatever you want here. I'm going to put a couple of pieces of greenery here. I've got my twine into position underneath the hat. Again, the little short end of my hat is open because I wanted to let the strings and stuff hang off the hat and let it look raw there, and place whatever berries and little bells you want in there. And then I'm going to bring those twine up and tie a nice bow here. Oh, I just love how the Santa turned out. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue the bell on in the center. And there you can see the hat sits upright. But if you want it onto the bed spring, again, remember our hat is rectangle, but the beard covers all of that bed spring there. It just covers it. And what I'm going to do, and then the other end of the bed spring comes right to the edge of the back of the Santa, and I'm just taking some crochet thread, and I'm just simply sewing the Santa hat around the spring so that it stays on. And I only just show it doing this like once each side. I actually go back again and do it twice. And if you didn't want to sew it on, you can totally just glue it onto the bed spring if you wanted. But I wanted the option if I wanted to cut him off because I wanted the bed spring for something else later, I could, because as you know, the Santa sits upright by itself. Once I do that off camera, I'm going to shimmer it with that little glitter spray, and that makes this project complete. So I hope you like both of these projects. I only did 2 projects in this video because I knew the Santa would take up a lot of time. And as you'll see at the end of the video, we had a little sadness in our lives this week. So I was done crafting for the week. Leave me a comment down below and let me know which project you liked best. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you walked in here for the first time and you're just checking things out and you're digging what you saw, make sure before you click off, you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another project from me. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Well-known words from the King of Kings. But where is your faith found in these words of his when you're facing a difficult challenge? Will your faith still stand strong when God doesn't fix your situation in the way that you want? Does your heart know that Jesus will always be by your side no matter what is happening? Does your mind often have doubt as you wait for Jesus to make you whole? Waiting obviously is the hardest part. Uncertainty of how Jesus will bring about your situation plays a close second. Both of these can often play games with your belief as you hope for his grace to come through in your life, and when fervent prayer isn't yielding results quickly enough in your timeline, you may start to question whether God has time for you or whether or not he even cares. You definitely start to question, Jesus, are you there? Or maybe you think that he isn't answering because you did something wrong that you aren't aware of. You often feel alone in the desert as you cry out and you're thirsty for something to be changed in your life to make it better. So in that waiting, maybe you cry, maybe you get depressed, maybe you get angry. Your faith and belief probably even try harder to make a difference with the words of your prayers, hoping that it just might change Jesus' mind to fix your situation in the way that you want. You struggle against what you know and what you see. But in all this, it shouldn't be a struggle at all. You see, God is perfect, blameless, and full of love. He speaks grace, mercy, and strength into your soul. So no matter what your challenge is, you must recognize and cling to the knowledge that whatever you are currently up against, you are not alone, that Jesus always and will always hear you. Your faith and belief in God must choose to stand firm upon his rock. You must understand that the desert you are in will yield streams of living water in God's perfect timing. In his perfect timing, and whatever he chooses to do for you will be the best for you. In any life challenge, it's hard to wait or possibly face the reality that God isn't fixing it how you want, but God is always for you and never against you. He will fill you and make you whole. He will never forsake you. He will never leave you. He is always there to comfort you. And when you are weary, he will always give you rest. Let your faith cling to this hope and never, ever give up. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.